techniques you can use when telling stories yourself, maybe to your own students or even to your own children. Now, it will be a lighter version for the students in YL. It'll be a lighter version of what you learned in literacy already. Let's see, this is slowly turning on. As this is turning on, I'd like us to focus over here at this picture for just a minute. Let's take a look at it. What do we notice in this picture?
Dog.
Yeah. How does the dog look?
Happy.
Yeah. Why do we think the dog is that way? Okay. Let's think of the title for a second. I'm the best. Can you guys say it too? I'm the best. By Lucy Cousins. Oh, this isn't turning on for some reason. Okay. Hopefully this one works. So one thing we do before we start a story, we always ask some before reading questions. This will get our students thinking about the topic. I like to say it switches their brains over to thinking in English if you're asking the questions in English. We can see what kind of background knowledge that they have already. Maybe they look at that picture and say, snake. Well, then we know we have to teach them what a dog is. So we can see what they already know. And this is one of those fancy YL terms. It helps lower the affective filter. Gets them ready to learn. And we start the story. Already excited. Hello, I'm Dog, and I'm the best. How does he look? Yeah. These are my friends. Ladybug, Mole, Goose, and Donkey. I love them. They're great. But I'm the best. I can run much faster than Mole. Can you guys do that just where you're sitting? Run much faster than Mole. I win. What does he say? I'm the best. I can dig holes much better than Goose. Can we all dig holes? Let's dig holes. I win. I'm the best. I'm much bigger than Ladybug. Can you do that really big, really big. I win. I'm the best. I can swim much better than Donkey. Y'all swim? I win. I'm the best. Aw, man. Is Dog the best at everything? Seems like it so far. Yeah, he says so. I'm the best at everything. Yeah. And there's a word on this page that starts with ba. Ba. What word starts with ba? Best. Yeah. Oh no. How do his friends feel? Sad. Yeah. I feel sad. Me too. Dog is best at everything. I wish I was as good as Dog. Oh. this way too? Is dog being a very good friend? Not really. So let's see. Actually, what do we think is going to happen? What's going to happen next? All right, let's see what happens. Oh, I can dig holes much longer and much deeper than you, dog. So I win. I'm the best. What did digging holes look like again? What was that motion? Yeah. And who says this? Mole. Yeah. So what is Mole good at? Eating. Uh-oh. Actually, I can swim much faster than you, dog. So I win. And who says that? Dog. And what does swimming look like again? Can we swim? Actually, I'm much bigger than you, dog. So I win. I'm the best. And there's a word on here that starts with what? What word is that? Yeah. Let's do our big motion again. What's big look like? Actually, I can fly much higher than you, dog. In fact, you don't even have wings. So I win. I'm the best. Oh, let's do a flying motion. Don't bump your neighbor. Try not to hit your neighbor. Oh, now how does dog feel? Sad. Yeah. Why is he sad? Right. So let's see. How do you think we can cheer him up? How can we make him happy?
Like telling everyone is good at something.
Yeah. Let's see how they do this. Oh dear. I'm not the best at anything. I'm horrible at everything. I'm just a silly show-off. I don't even have wings. And I'm mean to my friends. Sorry, ladybug. Sorry, mole. Sorry, goose. Sorry, donkey. Don't worry, dog. You are the best at being our best friend. You are the best at having beautiful, fluffy ears. And we love you. Are his friends being nice? Yeah, that's very nice of his friends. Oh, phew. Obviously, having big, fluffy ears is the most important thing. So, I am the best. Does it sound like Dog learned his lesson? Not really. Not that much. So I want us to think about this story for a minute, and then talk with your neighbor. Think about it with your neighbor. What part of the story did you like best? A minute to think. All right, talk to someone sitting around you. rhetorical questions. And I also try to ask some comprehension questions in there by asking him, show me, what does swim look like? So that way you can show me the action as a way to check for understanding. So during the story, it's important to ask questions as well. That way we can do all of those things. In addition, I try to ask a prediction question. What do you think will happen next? That way we're getting kids' brains activated and thinking. They'll come up with all sorts of crazy answers when you ask that question, so just be prepared for anything. And then, when you're telling a story, it's a good idea to make sure our techniques make it engaging for the students. I expect the PL students in the class to know this answer. What kind of techniques can we use to make our story a bit more engaging for students? What was that? TPR. Yeah, and what's the big thing with TPR? What's the big part of it?
Showing movement.
Yeah. Moving around. Kids don't like to stay still. So they don't like to stay still. Guess who else is moving? We are. Get us some exercise in. So move around a little with your students, especially if there's a book that allows for so much movement. Now, this is something I'm not the best at. Goes along with the story. I'm not always the best with changing my voice and having funny voices, but if you can do that, if you're good with voices, try to change it up a little. Don't read monotone like this. No one likes hearing stories like this. But rising intonation, changing your inflection, that can also make your story a bit more engaging for students. So those are some techniques where you can make sure your students also like the story. You know, we're asking questions, getting them to move around, and then adding voices and silly gestures too. Afterwards, I asked a simple question. Now, I always tell my students this. The question I would not really ask at the end of a story is, did you like it? Now, it's not a terrible question, but you do have to be prepared if they say no. It's okay if they say No, but then you just have to politely ask them why. Or if you really like the story, you might get offended. So, it's best to just stay away from did you like this story? Come up with a different question. Hey, what part did you like? Who was your favorite character? What do you think will happen to Dog next? Keep the story going. Let their imaginations go a little bit. So we ask questions before, during, and after reading to get our students thinking. In addition to that, we also can do some kind of activities. So I'm going to pass these out. I'm just going to give us a few minutes to work with the people sitting around you. And let's see, I'll have this one for the four of you over here. And then the four of you. So go ahead, just take a second and follow the instructions and do the activity. So for this one, you actually personally get to pick what you're the best at. So what are you personally good at? And then you get to draw yourself doing it.
It says like that, so I thought I had to read I don't really like it. So dogs take and everything and you start answering. Yes, that's kind of thing. Yes, actually,
Okay, everyone? So let's review the type of activities that we can give to our students after we're done reading a story. Generally, they're going to fall into two different categories. We're checking their comprehension or their understanding of what they just read, or it's going to be some kind of language-based activity. So I'm going to go around to the different activities we had, and let's figure out if they were language-based or comprehension-based. So we'll start over here. When it came to drawing, what you're the best at. Would you say that you use language, or is that a comprehension activity? I would agree with that, yeah. Because all you have to do in this activity is show a simple picture of what you're good at, or draw a simple picture. In the back, could you tell us about your activity, please? What did you have to do?
Retelling the story with flashcards.
Okay, so when we retell the story, is that more language or comprehension, do you think?
Creation.
Yeah. Now, when we retell a story, does it have to be perfect, word for word? Especially for younger learners? No. Don't expect them to remember every word, but if they get the basic details, that's what matters. All right, next up. What activity did you guys have? In the back first and then up front.
The language activities such as comparative and superlative.
Right. Now this one is definitely for maybe slightly older learners, maybe 7 or 8 years old international age. And that one, yeah, so fill in the blank activity. Who was taller, flew higher, dug further, etc. And then up front, what was your activity?
Our activity is sequencing, so we put some picture cards in a row.
All right. Would you say that's comprehension or language? Yeah, because we had to remember what happened first, next, then, finally, last. And over here, which one did you guys do?
Matching the flashcards.
Matching the story.
Okay. Would you say that is language or comprehension? Because in this one, you have to match up words and language, or could be a little bit of language too. Also, another thing you want to consider when putting together a post activity, think about the age level of the children. For instance, filling in the blank, we can't do that if they cannot read. So we have to make sure that, just fill in the blank. Well, if they don't know what it says, that's not going to happen. Whereas retelling a story with just flashcards, that might be way too easy for, say, a 9-year-old. Because it's like, well, you did this and this, and yeah, I'm done. So make sure the activities that we're choosing, that we figure out, do we want to check comprehension or language? And also make sure we're making sure that age is also considered. Age and language level. All right, if you have a paper, you can throw that away. I don't need it. If you have something that is laminated, please put it back in the envelope so I can collect it. And I will make sure the office gets all these materials so that way you can upload them later or download them later and use them if you want to go with the story. There's even more materials on here. So the file that I'm going to share with the office, it looks like this. So here's the examples I was talking about. You know, the students can say what they're special at. A simple one-word answer. Another way to show what they're the best at, they have to write their name. Like, Kara is the best at sleeping. Matching. More matching. A little simpler version of matching. The comparatives versus superlatives or superlatives. This is one of the flashcards where they're matching word and or picture and sentences. So this is for your slightly higher level students. The sequencing activity and the retelling activity. So I'll make sure that the office gets these for your use later on. All right, if you haven't done so already, please make sure that those items get put back in the envelope. The papers you can either keep or you can recycle them. But other than that, I thank you all so much for coming out today. I enjoyed reading to you and have a wonderful day. Enjoy this beautiful weather.